let's talk about the goings-on in the Third Ward. Down there in Houston, University of Houston, they have decided to make a coaching change, as Dana Holgorsen has been fired after 5 seasons at the helm of the Cougars. Let's not forget that Dana Holgorsen, whenever he was hired there back in 2019, I guess it was technically, I think it was 2018, but whatever. It was after the 2019 was the first season.
Yeah.
The real splashy hire for Houston.
Yes.
Real splashy hire. They just gone through a situation where they had lost 2 coaches to bigger programs, right? Kevin Sumlin leaves to go to A&M. They kind of promote Tony Levine from within. He lasts for 3 seasons before he's asked to move on. They get Tom Herman in there. Tom Herman takes them to 2 really good years, including a Peach Bowl win. Then he leaves for the University of Texas. They go to Major Applewhite. After 2 pretty decent years, they fire him after that. Remember, Major Applewhite went 15-10 at Houston, but that wasn't good enough. And so then they wanted to make a big splash. And I think it's lost in – this was the time when right after Jimbo Fisher had been hired by
A&M,
it started becoming kind of poaching season in college football. And so Houston ponied up and brought in Dana Holgorsen from West Virginia. Now, there's actually, I think, a decent parallel between Dana Holgorsen's arrival in Houston and Jimbo Fisher's arrival at Texas A&M.
Okay.
Specifically because I think for both parties, in both instances, they were ready for a change. I think that when you talk to Florida State folks, when A&M hired Jimbo Fisher, they were saying, okay, well, yeah, see ya. And Jimbo Fisher obviously went out. The relationship had soured. The situation was similar at West Virginia. He had done good things at West Virginia, right? But including 2016, they had a 10-win season. But I think that the idea was, this has run its course. We want to make a change. You probably want out. We're not going to fight this if you want to go to Houston. He goes to Houston, and over the course of his tenure at Houston, look, I'm not going to lie, he goes 31-28 in 59 games there at Houston. 31-28. It's just not good enough.
No.
It's not good enough considering the resources that they have. And what I think is particularly interesting is that prior to this year, the offense has had years where they were really good.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Not this year, but the year before last, when you looked at having Clayton Tune coming back at quarterback, he opted to stay in another year. You had, at that point, one of the best running backs in the nation in Alton McCaskill. They had a good pair of receivers. It was like that was supposed to be the year that they were contending for a New Year's Six Bowl, if not a spot of trying to be the first G5 team in the playoff at that point, because Cincinnati hadn't done it.
Right. I also think that there's something important to remember that I think started the kind of the kind of downfall right from the beginning. Do you remember back in 2019? It's the first year at the helm for Dana Holgorsen at Houston. And by the way, he takes over a Houston program that the year before had made a bowl game. They had fired Major Applewhite for going 8-5. And there was talk about how we are not an 8-5 team. Like, we're not an 8-5 program. We have higher aspirations for that, and we feel like Dana Holgorsen can do that. Do you remember what happened in the middle of the year in 2019? Things hadn't gone well. They've ended up finishing 4-8. Remember what happened with the quarterback situation?
Yeah, because it wasn't Tune. Tune wasn't the starter.
It was De'Aaron King.
And then he got hurt, right? Or did he get benched?
He got hurt, and then he kind of said, I'm going in the transfer portal.
Yes.
He announced that from the word go. And in the middle of the season, he said, I'm done. I'm leaving the team. I'm going to go in the transfer portal. And it was big news.
Yeah, well, he was notorious transferer, correct?
He went on to Miami. And then after Miami, he finished at Miami. He finished his career at Miami. Now, by the way, he's on SMU staff.
I did not realize that.
All that is to say,
that's a blast from the past.
that was a real red flag from the beginning. Now, those are not Dana Holgorsen's guys. He didn't recruit De'Aaron King. But I remember thinking, that's not a great start because De'Aaron King was like an all-AAC quarterback.
Oh, he was fantastic.
He was a big deal for them.
He was fantastic.
He went on to Miami. So after that, they did have. It's important to remember a couple of the good times, right? In 2021, Houston was real good.
Mm-hmm.
Houston went 12-2. Houston got as high as 16th.
Mm-hmm.
There was a minute there going into 2021. Remember, there was talk about how they were going to crash, and especially coming out of 2021 into 2022, they were the hot name to be the new Cincinnati, to crash the party in the college football playoff.
Yep.
That was what they wanted. To the powers that be at Houston, what they did in 2021 was the standard. Mm-hmm. We should be dominating the AAC. We have the facilities. We have the location. We are in a recruiting just
hotbed,
mega hotbed, right? We should be dominating. And so that's why at 31-28, it just simply wasn't good enough. It just simply wasn't good enough. Bless you.
Thank you.
And so they decide, and I think that people had just kind of become tired of Dana Holgorsen. Say what you want about his coaching ability. Mm-hmm. I think he has a particular way of going about his business, a particular personality that I think does rub some people the wrong way.
It's not warm and fuzzy.
I never had a problem with Dana Holgorsen because he always felt like a guy who just shot you straight.
Yep.
Seemed like a normal guy in that way. But, he was not the guy who was going to glad hand and all of that. Now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the issue that came about was when there was national attention on things that were happening in and around the culture of the program. I mean, there was the whole thing about players getting upset on the sideline, people saying that they're going to transfer, and there was just a clear lack of, if you want to be a straight shooter, that's fine, but I think the lack of culture started to affect the play on the field.
I think there was a notion that there was a bad culture there, which got him run. Mm-hmm. Allow me to propose to you, though, Pickle, that Dana Holgorsen accomplished his mission at Houston. Allow me to sell you on this.
Okay.
I think that one of the reasons that Houston hired Dana Holgorsen, a sitting Power 5 head coach, was to up their profile to the point that on the next go-around of Big 12 alignment,
they were going to
get the promotion. I think Dana Holgorsen was part of a grander plan to get Houston into the Power 5. And you know what?
It worked.
Where's Houston playing? They're in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. Now, I also think that is what happened this year is part of their downfall. Part of his downfall in the sense of, okay, we are now in the Big 12. We do not want to, and especially with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, there is a vacuum at the top of who can be the new power in the Big 12. Houston is not in that conversation right now. Mm-mm. Plain and simple. That's not an opinion. They're not in that conversation. Now, I don't think any of the teams that joined this year are in that conversation. Mm-mm. But certainly,
maybe BYU,
and with the new teams coming in, specifically Utah, I would say, I think the Houston brass said, if we are going to avoid becoming a perennial cellar dweller in this new conference, we've got to make a move. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Well, and I think that in this crazy world of realignment, and let me just kind of throw what I know there, the same thing happened to Seth Luttrell.
Yep.
You move up to the American, and it was like, all right, you know what? If we're taking the leap, if we're going to do this, we need to clear house because we're not at the point entering this where we want to be. Mm-hmm. Now, they obviously gave Dana a year to try and prove that, and it didn't end up going like they wanted it to. But I think that's completely understandable because they basically had a give or take year with Texas and them still being in. Next year's when the clean slate and the new Big 12 actually comes into play.
Okay. So now you start looking at where Houston goes from here. And I think that the job at Houston's really interesting. Mm-hmm. You are on one hand, you're in a big city, mm-hmm. and you're in a major recruiting hub. It has a lot of alumni. It's got a lot of people and it's got the capital to win big, mm-hmm. right? Tom Herman did in 2015. Dana Holgorsen did in 2020. It can be done there.
They've got the donors in the NIL
Now,
era.
Here's the thing. And let's call a spade here. It is being in the city of Houston is also a challenge in the sense that there's a lot to do in Houston. A lot to do in Houston that doesn't involve going to a Houston Cougars football game. Mm-hmm. Check the attendance, okay? All I'm saying is this is a unique job that for the right person, I think there's people who think of Houston as a juggernaut, mm-hmm. potentially. And it's true because they have that area. And if they could just steal the borders, they can build with Houston kids, they could turn into a real powerhouse. Mm-hmm. The other issue is that's a hotbed for A&M, that's a hotbed for Texas, it's a hotbed for LSU, it's a hotbed for everybody. So, where do they go? I think there's a couple of names that are going to get thrown about. I think Jeff Traylor's name is once again going to come about, mm-hmm. right? That would be a step up as far as conference is concerned, moving from the AAC over the Big 12. Certainly, he's a guy who, he was in the mix, we know, for the A&M job. Mm-hmm. This would be a nice grab for Houston. I would keep an eye on Willie Fritz, the mm-hmm. Tulane coach. He's a guy who has history in the state of Texas. He coached at Blinn. He coached Sam Houston. He's done unbelievable things at Tulane. They play SMU for the conference title this week. Mm-hmm. They of course went to the
New Year's Six Bowl. Yeah. And they won. They beat USC.
Couple names to keep an eye on as far as assistants are concerned. Jeff Banks. Jeff Banks is the special teams coordinator and associate head coach at Texas. And is a guy who's kind of been earmarked as a potential head coach going down the road. He is a guy who has become a recruiting ace for Texas. Mm-hmm. That's what he's known for. So Jeff Banks is in that mix. Emmett Jones. Emmett Jones is a guy who was at Texas Tech before he moved over to Oklahoma. He is also known as a recruiting ace, but he was the guy who was the head coach at South Oak Cliff before moving on to take the job on staff at Texas Tech. There's two other names that I want you to keep your eye on. One of them is Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury's got his coach in this state. He's recruited well in the Houston area. He is, from what I understand, sitting on an island somewhere.
Yeah, good for him.
Collecting checks.
That rocks.
Could you pull him back into the college ranks?
Mm-hmm.
It's a thought. There's another name that's going to get floated around, and it's Gary Patterson. I will tell you from personal experience that I know that Gary Patterson wants to coach again.
Yep.
And you can't doubt the resume.
No.
You can't doubt the resume. And as a guy who has shepherded programs through conference changes before, mm-hmm. there's essentially nobody else in America who's done it more and more effectively than Gary Patterson. As far as a true proven track record, it's hard to match him. So it's over for Dana Holgorsen in Houston. And it'll be interesting to see where they go next. I do think that one thing they're going to do is they're going to double down on Texas ties. That is one thing I'm pretty confident in. I have a hard time believing that they're going to do because Dana Holgorsen had some history in Texas, but not a ton. Like they're going to double down on that because that has really become the coin of the realm these days, especially if you want to seal the borders within Houston for talent acquisition. So there you have it. It was a good run, Dana Holgorsen. You were fun.
Yeah.
He was fun.
Oh, yeah. Dana
Holgorsen was fun. He was unpredictable. It didn't always translate to wins.
No.
But
there was always stuff to talk about.
There's always stuff to talk about. Absolutely. Hey, thanks for watching this clip here on YouTube. If you like this kind of stuff and you want more of it, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember, you can watch us live every weekday at noon at TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, or here on YouTube. And if you want more of the best coverage of football in the state of Texas, check out TexasFootball.com and become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider at TexasFootball.com/subscribe.